in the previous video, we saw how we can add state to our application. We saw a basic example of having a counter, having two buttons, and on user input of clicking on a button, we manipulate the state. Let's see another example of taking another sort of user input. And I'm going to remove most of the code here. I'm also going to remove the state code here, the count as well as goes. And let's say I have an input of type text on my screen. It's right here. And let's say I can put my name here. Let me also give it a little bit of a span. And I'm going to label as name. Right, so this is a space where a user can come and enter their name. So if I go and put my name here, Shreyans, that is it, what this does. Let's say I also put a space below this, and here I want to say hello, then whatever the name is coming, and I don't know where the name is coming from, and put a greeting, how are you? And we want it such that whenever user starts putting up a name, here their name should pop up. Currently it's giving us an error because it really doesn't know where this name variable is coming from, but I hope you get the idea. As we saw in the previous, that whenever we want to take a user input and use it in our application, we're going to raise that input to a state. So I'm going to go again and create a state variable. Again, the state, how the function goes is we write a use state. It takes an initial value. Since we are dealing with names, which are strings, I'm going to give an initial value of an empty string, which makes more sense when we are dealing with strings. When we were dealing with numbers, an initial value of 0 made more sense at that point. When we take the useState function, it destructures into two elements. The first is the state. The other one is the modifier for the state again. So we're going to call it setState. Since our application is dealing with names, I'm going to go and rename it and call it name and call this as setName. Right? So now we have that name variable in scope and it's an empty string. So it's rendering perfectly right now. And if I go and put strings, still application is not doing much because we are still not able to take a value out of this input, right? This input, which is right here, is also the same, is basically the same input, which is here. And we still don't know how to take the value out of it. But like on the button, we had an onClick function. On the input, we usually have this onChange function. And we can start using this onChange function. So the onChange function, as with any event-based function, it will give out us an event. And let's say the value we will get out of it, const value is equal to event.target.value. I'm pretty confident you are familiar with this thing, event.target.value. It just tells us the event happened in this box and what is the value of this box. So event, we go to the target, which is this input box, and then we just get the value out of it. For example, right now it's just my name here. So I'm getting the value out of it. This is something which you do always in normal JavaScript. Even if you're using jQuery or whatever you're using, you would still be doing something similar to this. Now I can go and say set the name to the value you are getting out of the input box. Now if I go and write hello Shreyans, on every letter change, let's see it again. If I just type S, on every letter change, this state changed. Once I press an S, the input gets an event where the value of this input box gets to S. It puts the set name, which makes the name changes to S, and then we have the name being displayed here. So if I go SHRIYANS, I have my whole name out here, and on each key press or on each input change, we basically change the name state and essentially display it here. There's also one thing important whenever you are doing this is to control the component, or it can lead to some really nasty bugs. So that now we are controlling how we take the value out of this input element, but we need a way to control this input element completely. And I'm going to put this value variable inside of it, and I'm going to give it name. What essentially we are telling the input element, let me refresh so that that warning goes away. Right. So what we are telling our input element, that your value is always the value of the state, and whenever you change your value, you have to always change the state as well. We are trying to keep this input as tightly coupled with the state. If anything changes in the input, it should change the state as well. And since the state has changed, the value of the input has to be changed as well. This is a really important part. This is how you'll be building all your forms. Let's say there was a name, age, the city, everything like that, and you'll be pulling out all of that data, storing it in the state, and using a very similar manner that on every change input, you will be changing the state, and you'll be providing the value of that input from the state itself. This is what's known as controlling a state-based component.